the Go Berserk with Email podcast with Navy nuclear engineer turned email software developer, Troy Broussard. So calm.
I'm pissed off, but I'm telling this because I am teaching you how to think differently and how to test differently.
So patient.
And Ben, that's put $500,000 into this company too, is being told that nobody can find the goddamn bug.
So charitable.
I'm going to start paying bounties every time somebody finds a bug. We're going to deduct $10 for that week.
So trusting.
Do not assume that anything works. Assume that nothing works.
And so sweet, it makes sugar taste just like salt.
I want to play into the sexiness of marketing automation, but I also want to slap the complexity of it.
The Go Berserk with Email podcast begins now.
There is no way that you're going to tell me that you found a use case for AI that's actually good, because all you ever do is rant to me about how much you hate AI. It's not possible.
Well, I'm not sure that it's good, but it's pretty good, at least. I'll give it that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of AI. AI reminds me, I'm an old school marketer, and I used to have an SEO company back in the day. And a large part of what we did in that early kind of era of online marketing was what's referred to as article marketing. That was kind of where things got started, right? And the concept behind article marketing is still effective today in magazines. You see it all the time in a magazine where you pick up a magazine and there'll be a full page advertorial, right? And you won't even realize that it's an ad because it's a story and it's got a picture of somebody and then it's got a whole story and they're teaching something. And then down at the end, it's got just a little bio. If you'd like to learn more about Laura Schomburg, reach out to her here. I'm just making that name up. I have no idea who that is. And, reach out to her here. Here's an email address. Boom. And it's just this really subtle form of selling where you're selling by demonstrating your expertise in writing the content and providing that article. And then, the people that resonate with that and want to go a little deeper in whatever topic you're teaching about will look you up by your bio down at the end and reach out to you. And so this was the concept behind article marketing. And in the early days of online marketing, of course, marketers are like the virus in the Matrix, right? The marketers, as soon as they gleam onto something that's working, they just attack it like a virus and eat it until it stops being useful. And they just bastardize it and turn it into something that's just sickening and revolting, right? And that's what happened with article marketing. And that's why all of the top article marketing sites all got deplatformed, de-indexed, dropped from Google, etc. eZine articles and all these others, they just kind of ceased to exist. And they've sort of made a little bit of a comeback in recent years, but essentially they went by the wayside. And why is that? Well, it's because article marketing developed this concept, and I can guarantee you it's the fault of some overeager marketer that, was telling everybody how successful he is while living in his basement of his mom's house and, being brought in bologna and sandwiches for lunch by dear old mom. And he created an article marketing spinner. Do you remember those? Do you remember
good grief.
Spinners?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what an article spinner did was nothing more than with various phrases or words in the article, you would give 4 or 5 different alternatives of what other synonyms and words and phrases could be used. And then the spinner would run through it and generate all different kinds of variations of that article, combining random versions of words. And it just turned into an utter and complete horseshit of gibberish, right? And the more you tried to get these unique versions, the crappier the content got, et cetera, et cetera. From my standpoint, much of what we're doing and seeing today with Chat, GPT, and AI fits along that level. It's somewhat better. It's quite a bit better. It's probably 1,000 times better, but it's still the same basic construct. It's not even really artificial intelligence yet. It's really just massive multi-processing of content. That's very different than artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a understanding of something that allows you to interpret and generate unique ideas and adapt and evolve without having to have human input. And that is something that we really don't have hardly at all anywhere today. We call it AI, but it's really not AI. And that's the first thing to really understand. It reminds me of the days in the dot-com era, which, I was all up in that whole thing. I had like 25,000 shares of LoudCloud with Mark Andreessen and Ben Howitz and all of these different guys, Insik Ree, and all of these guys that were building this stuff. And of course, the company never even got launched because the dot-com era blew up in that time. And so, those 25,000 shares were worth exactly negative $3 and the time that it took to print the paper, right? But I was definitely involved in that whole dot-com era stuff. And there was a time where companies were literally just adding .com to the name of their company just so that they could increase their valuation on the stock market. And the stock market was paying, increased valuations. Their stock was going up just because they called themselves a .com company. Today, we're seeing the same stupidity with AI. Everybody's saying, "Oh, we've introduced AI," and they literally had this analysis, which was probably done by AI, coincidentally, but they had this summary of a CEO at one of his earnings announcements talking, and his company. I'm not going to name the company because I don't want to get into any type of situational referencing of somebody else's business or slander or any of that kind of stuff. But it was really quite hilarious because they analyzed how many times the CEO of this company said the word AI in his earnings announcements. And the company has nothing that anybody can figure out to do with AI whatsoever. And yet all he did was like AI bomb the whole earnings announcement to try to like inject AI. We're in the middle of AI. We're a leader in AI. AI is a big part of what we do because AI is so important. Everything in the future of our company and AI, right? It is just ludicrous trying to amp up his company on the back of a buzzword. So I'm not a big fan of AI for those reasons. I think a lot of it is just BS. And I think that a lot of it is going to just generate a lower bar of lower quality. When it comes to email writing, I can absolutely assure you that Ben Settle and I have discussed this ad nauseum, and I can absolutely assure you and speak for him on this regard that we will never have inside of Berserker Mail a generate your email with AI button inside of it like everybody else is bragging about right now. We just won't have that crap. Because if you think about it, the whole reason, and we talked about this in the last podcast of why to write daily email, the most important of those reasons was that people get to know you. And they can't get you to know you by just rechurning and iterating information about you that you've said somewhere else. And that's all an AI writer can do. All an AI writer can do is research everything that you've said in the past, create this massive big database, and then try to pretend to sound like you on stuff that it knows that you would say based on what you've said in the past. Therefore, by definition, nothing it can say is new. It can't think for you. It can't make predictions that you would make. It can't expose theories that you haven't already exposed. And so the value that it provides, from my standpoint, the value that it would provide Berserker Mail is virtually nothing. And therefore, that's exactly how much development time we're going to give it. Less than nothing. It will not be in Berserker Mail for those reasons. But I digress, because at the top of this, I did say that I found a useful case for AI, and I am going to let you know what that was. So we held a webinar last Thursday. And I say we, my partner, John San Pietro, and I were doing a webinar teaching our trading program. And we were going through that whole webinar. And then we decided to do a follow-up because it was a sales webinar and we made a bunch of sales off of it. But then I really like to do follow-up webinars that are unannounced and just make them unscripted with no slides, just on camera, talking, answering questions, showing things, demoing things. That's the way I like to do it, because as a buyer, that's what I like to see. I like to see somebody that actually knows what the hell they're doing, can show it to me, is confident, doesn't need a script, doesn't need a slide deck to be able to present. And that's, those are all confidence boosting things. So I always love doing these like Q&A impromptu webinars as a follow-up, right? For the people that are on the fence. And so we did one of these impromptu Q&A sessions. And certainly by accident, because anybody that knows me, especially after that long 15-minute prelude into why I hate AI, would know that if I had seen the button, I would have just canceled that son of a bitch, right? But there was a little button there that auto recorded and auto generated an AI summary for the meeting. And I got to tell you, Jonathan, man, can we just edit this out? I got to say it really quietly. I actually was kind of impressed by the summary that it generated. It was actually useful. Now, it wasn't great, but it was good. And it was useful. I wouldn't have published it as is. I would have edited it because it made some mistakes, especially talking about finances. It made some misuses of financial terms and stuff. So I would have had to do a couple little edits to it. But I got to tell you, I was pretty impressed. It did a really good job of summarizing the meeting and breaking it down into high-level categories and topics of review and summary and points that were made. I was actually pretty impressed with that. So I must say, I have found at least one semi-useful use case for AI, John.
I think that's interesting because it goes back to what you said, and I had never really thought of it that way. But all AI can do is take who you were and try to just keep regurgitating that. And so it makes perfect sense that you say it took a meeting of something you already did and said and summarized it for you. That makes sense. I think too many people hear AI and are believing that it's actually intelligent. And as you told us, it's not actually intelligent. It's just regurgitating what it already learned. It's not building on that. But I do like that idea. And it's got me thinking now, because I remember when I used to do client calls, I would have a VA come in and do all of that, sum up the client call, and then I would write a newsletter off the back of the summary. And I can see how that would cut that time down way, way down.
So, okay, so you said a couple of good things there, and I really want to emphasize and reiterate what you said, because I was testing you, and you said it good. So I'm going to give you kudos here. You didn't say that it would eliminate the need for a VA. You said it would cut the time way down.
Yeah.
And this is where most marketers really jack this shit up, okay? They want to use AI to eliminate, and that's not what its purpose is. Its purpose is to save time. So this summary that it generated for me was valid. It was useful, but it needed to be edited. Not a lot, maybe 15 minutes of editing time. Now, that 15 minutes is a lot less than you'd pay the VA to go through and listen to it all and take notes or transcribe the whole thing and then try to write a summary from the You'd pay an hour or more of their time to do that. So it may have reduced your need for the VA by 75%. Okay. And that is meaningful and that is powerful. But do not for a moment think that you can eliminate the need for editing and the VA and just straight publish out of the, and that unfortunately is what 95 and 100 marketers are doing right now. And that's why I say that AI leads to a race to the bottom of the toilet bowl, spinning ever and ever further down in shittier and shittier content with less and less effort, because people want to look at it as eliminating a task. And it doesn't. It just refines and improves and makes it more efficient. But you still need that human aspect to it, because even though it did a pretty damn good job of summarizing our meeting, it still had some erroneous things that made, if I published that out with my name at the end, would make me sound stupid. And I wouldn't do that, right? So I think this is the important thing to understand. I do think that AI as a summary tool is actually quite useful. And by the way, they're using this in the stock market quite a bit. So they'll go through and do like a deep study on the impacts of long-term fracking on the soil quality and things like that. And they'll go out and do these massive studies, and they might be 300 pages long, right? And there's some really good meat in there that affects the earnings potential of that company. And so the way that Wall Street works is they have people to go back and read through all that and create summaries and do the research on it and all that, and then make recommendations of, hey, I think we should value this company a little bit higher than we are. They've got more top end ahead of them. And then you'll see that reflect in their stock growth. But that is an area I do think that AI can be very powerful, and it's already starting to have an impact in the stock market in that way. That I think is an intelligent use for it. Now, I've played around with stock market AI tools that try to predict where the price is going, and they're utterly and completely useless. And I don't care how many guys tell me, "Oh, but ours is different." No, dude, it isn't. It's just as useless as a lot. And they'll say, "But we monitor 400 data points, and we do this, and we monitor that," and that's great. It's all looking in the ass view, rear view mirror and trying to predict the future off of that. And you just can't. You just can't. Case in point, Coinbase today, just, yesterday took a big dump and dropped, 10% or whatever. And it was on some news story about it. It's not a hack, but it was just some kind of internal thing. And it was a news story that cost them some negative press. AI can't predict that. AI is never going to be able to predict that. Now, can AI be used to build up what the fundamental analysis of a company may look like and monitor a whole bunch of points and kind of real time summarize that? And after that news breaks, could AI then, reevaluate that and come up with a new fundamental rating that's lower because of that, et cetera? Yes. But first of all, I keep using AI, and it's really not AI, as we've already said. It's really just massive parallel data analysis. Right? That's really what is being bastardized into the cubbyhole of AI today. It's really just massive parallel data analysis at a level that we haven't been able to do before because of the processing power of some of the new dedicated CPUs and tools. And that is beautiful. I love that. But in essence, it's really just data mining. And we haven't truly developed AI. But that doesn't mean there isn't some valid use cases on the summary aspects of it. So, how can this be applicable to you and your email marketing or entrepreneurial business? One is you can take some of these summary tools and use them, like the built-in summaries that Zoom can do are useful. Just don't publish them directly. Edit them a little bit and utilize that. But two, use AI for what it's good for, and that's analyzing data. Use it to give you a whole bunch of ideas, or task it to analyze some of your competitors and see what things they're talking about so that you can get a hit list of podcast episodes you want to launch, Jonathan, or whatever. But use it as a data analysis tool looking backward, and don't think of it as a predictive algorithm. And honestly, I think you'll be in a much better place with this bastardized concept of AI.
Dude, I can't believe it. I can't. He's singing the praises of AI now. It's your research assistant. Yeah, I like that. I like that summary assistant. But I think the real epiphany here is it looks in the past. It does not look in the future. And so many people are confused thinking that it is the future. That was incredible. So Troy, what do you have for us next time?
Well, I'm just going to stay on this groove I'm in of debunking things, and we're going to debunk the whole theory of 80-20, and I'm going to have some really good contrarian perspective of how 80-20 is not the 80-20 you're thinking.
Dude, I cannot wait. Another episode is in the can. We will be back in your earbuds next time. Thank you for tuning in.
To get a free Berserker Mail test drive with no credit card required, go to startmytestdrive.com. From there, you can play around inside the platform without pressure. Load up emails and campaigns to see how simple the interface is, and get comfy with everything before deciding to join. That's startmytestdrive.com.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.